And so we'll just, if it's something that's really individual that you want to talk about in private, I'll talk to you later. But if it's something that maybe is a more of a general question, that would be great, as we did in the last session. So if we can kind of twist it a little bit to more general about the diet, and I can answer it in front of everyone, and that could be really, I think, helpful to everybody to learn from. So yeah, go ahead.
So my son's an odd case anyway. I won't get too much
That's
into
okay.
that. But the first thing is he was never able to make real high ketones on the diet, even on 4-1,
Okay.
keto oil, like maybe 2 point something on the blood meter,
Okay.
3 maybe.
Okay.
And the diet never helped with seizures.
Okay.
But he does have a GLUT1 diagnosis
Yep.
with gene testing.
Yep.
And
Yep.
so the question is, I've still got him on a 2-to-1 ratio because he's really fat to have energy.
Energy,
If I brought him to a regular diet,
Yep.
he doesn't have energy.
Okay.
Like he doesn't just sit there and do
Like
nothing.
just fatigue and just general.
So, like, okay, so he needs the fat. So the question is, he's only at a 2-to-1 ratio. Is
Right.
it? But the brain needs energy, So
Right.
do you go to a 4-to-1 ratio on faith that you're going to give the brain more energy, even though you can't see the tangible benefits in,
You don't
you can't
see- he's not having
cognition.
seizures anymore.
He gets seizure control sort of by other means, but it's not through the diet.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't. If you
the
try
whole thing
4-to-1 and.
The whole thing with, your brain needs energy. Do we give it more energy?
But it's
by
much,
having
but
higher
I think you've heard, it's much more complicated probably than that, and that you may be getting plenty of energy with 2-to-1.
I mean, he's severely disabled,
Okay.
and so it's like,
I mean, there's a risk of side effect. It's not an inconsequential issue to go to 4-to-1 and stay there. I mean, you could always try things. I mean, that's what I tell most of my families. If you want to give it a try, you say, look, maybe switching from 2-to-1 to 4-to-1, let's see what it does. You just have to be pretty objective. I tell most of my families. I say, let's keep very clear, calendar about fatigue. Let's keep a calendar. Maybe don't tell the teachers how he's doing, and let's see what they say after a month, if they notice a difference. And then go back if there's no difference.
so just try to document.
Just like we do with anything, with medicines or other things, just one change at a time, and just try to be objective. I mean, that helps us as neurologists. If my family say, look, this is what's changed, and if they tell me there was no change, I say, fine, just go back. Okay? You don't need to just do it indefinitely just because for the fun of it. I mean, that just makes no sense.
No, it's just
You have to be
always
real
been kind
clear.
of we're doing this on faith that this is what you're supposed to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have another couple of questions.
Sure.
Do you know any type of side effects of the diet in kid health? They have more cavities
It's
or
probably the opposite.
inflammation?
So
Well, yeah.
the question being, if the question about sort of dental health, there was one paper. I'll have to go look for it. There was one paper I think that did show less cavities in I think it was in dental literature.
Well,
I'm trying to find it.
the
But
reason
my dietitian Zahava is married to a dentist, and so she's very interested in this. We just haven't done a formal study on it. He's more of an orthodontist than a true dentist, but she thinks it's probably. And a lot of families will say it seems like it gets better, just
Yeah.
less sugar.
yeah, that's what I noticed with Sophia when she was younger.
Yep.
Her enamel seemed to be more fragile.
Interesting.
Like she will lose more of that part, and she would get more fat even though she was in the diet. And so I was wondering.
I haven't heard of that. I mean, some of the medicines can do that too. Dilantin is one. I mean, there's some that may have effects we just haven't been looked at. Which is on the road, but I haven't heard of that.
And how about the immune system? Is it more ready to fight infection? Because I remember thinking about Stephen, he talked about inflammation,
Right.
and so.
Every once in a while, like you'll see in chapters, they'll say that the diet can cause sort of increased risk of infection. It gets thrown around really without too much in the way of scientific evidence. It's more of so it keeps getting passed around, but there's not much evidence that that's true. Anti-inflammatory is another whole exciting topic, that the diet may have some anti-inflammatory benefits. Why we use it for certain types of epilepsies where inflammation may be part of it. But that's different than infection. Inflammation and infection are separate.
Oh, sorry. One else.
Yes.
Do you know which type of oil oil versus avocado?
We use them all. We use all the oils, and we sort of vary depending on more on lipid profile in terms of what we use. There's no one better oil than another that we
Is it
try.
safe to use flaxseed oil?
Flaxseed, yeah. Tastes
It's
pretty good.
because
You can cook with it.
recently I read in the article that flaxseed oil can influence your blood.
In what way? I never heard of a problem with flaxseed. No, I don't think so.
Okay.
A lot of families use flaxseed oil. Yes?
So, I spoke to a little bit earlier.
Yes.
So, look at all of the blood ketone levels that you guys talked about earlier, and it
Yeah.
seems like most of the kids, or what you guys found was low. Compared to us, we're the same thing.
Low, what do you mean overall? Or?
Like her blood ketones
Hers are high.
is high, yeah.
Right.
We
Right.
checked it, with the machine.
Yep. Yep.
We found it at the urine ketones, which is all over the place for
Correct.
us. It wasn't really giving us a true read.
Right.
You know? If we drop it below 4, she gets cranial seizures.
Okay.
If we at a 7.8,
Yep.
great.
Yep.
But same thing like you said, like her Keppra level go slightly low,
Yep.
she sees.
Yep.
But then it's like the head drop seizures, so I would say seizures.
Yes.
Univar, yes, with the Univar parents. When that goes low,
Yep.
she has cranial seizures.
Okay.
So what is a safer drug than Univar?
Try to go with your questions. So I think before we talk about like safer drugs, ketones are very clearly what was clear in that survey was very individualized. There are families just like you say it absolutely matters. They're checking. They can be numbers in the survey like yours. So I can't tell you what number is better in general than anything. But they're getting their families not checking ketones doing spectacular. Families who are checking urine, and some of them hand wrote in things like urine consistently trace or small and doing wonderful. So every child is different. Every child. I think that's a clear, big message of this meeting. And so families say, well, what should the ketones be? Whatever works for your child. For you, it's obviously 7, 8. But for others, maybe less. Safe medications is, medications in the diet is a very hot topic. Dr. Cervenka and I were just in London at a keto training course, and I gave a whole talk on sort of diet and medicines, and how they work together, how they maybe can lead problems together. There's a lot of controversy about certain drugs and others. It doesn't appear that there's any one drug with the diet that's bad, per se, although hints maybe if you're on phenobarb when you start the diet, you're a little less likely to respond. And little hints about being on zonisamide, maybe a little more likely to respond, in small numbers. But valproate gets thrown around a lot in the whole larger keto community as being a bad drug, and I think we know that for sure. So I can't tell you, you have to talk to a neurologist about which one you want to try if you want to add another medicine to it. But, Keppra, as you saw in the survey, was probably the most common drug. Families, people who want to use it, probably because it just doesn't interact or cause any problems. It's been common with our keto kids too. So,
The president at the beginning when we were diagnosed.
yeah.
So once the fellows put her on phenobarb because she's not responding to
Yep.
anything.
Yep.
And then another resident come running in, no, she's a good one, kid, get her off.
Right.
So they pull her off.
Yeah.
And then we're back at cranial seizures. And then the next one says, no, just
Yeah.
put it back on. So we
Yeah.
went a lot of
If you came to
back
see me,
and-
I would not take her off.
Well,
Yeah.
There was a lot of back and forth
Yeah.
on that, and then.
Or at least a
our-
low dose. Keep the dose low, but
But then when we kept on reading about it too, we became uncomfortable with phenobarb, and we told our hero, okay, we gotta do something about this. So
Yeah.
we started tapering, or outgrow her dose, that was the plan.
she had some seizures.
Yeah, every 6 weeks, we
Yeah.
were back in the hospital.
Phenobarb's a little tricky. Phenobarb, just weaning it in general, for just everybody who has it with epilepsy, there's a little bit of a higher risk of breakthroughs, actually with all the benzos too, like Onfi, Klonopin. Those are drugs I wean very slowly, just because sometimes like you drop it a little bit and they'll have a seizure, and the parents email me and I'm like, hang in there, give it a few weeks, and then usually they settle. So it's something you just have to do a really slow wean just with it for some people, but doesn't mean you couldn't try again. Just do it carefully. That's not bad.
Around what age is it good to start testing the bills of slowing down on the medicine, you know,
For GLUT1 or just?
for good one, for,
I mean, you know, usually when we start the diet, we wait about a month before we start reducing medications. So, and then again, sometimes I can't. You know, I try, and so, I mean, if you look at our survey, there were still a third of the families out there are still on drugs. They're probably just gonna stay on it. Diet's doing most of the work, but the drugs are doing a little bit too.
Sorry,
Yeah.
how many times a day do you suggest? I live in Argentina, and
I know.
our times, our dinners are so much different.
Yes.
Like we have, we eat at night at 9 o'clock, so it's very
I've been
different.
there.
So how many
With
times?
lots of
a-
steak, lots
yeah.
of really good steak. At all hours.
Yeah. So how many times a day do you suggest that GLUT1 kids should eat?
You know, I give the same advice I give most of my general keto families, which is to try to spread the meals out. I think it's never been proven, it may get the ketone levels a little more stable. But you know, if it's a family that's just not possible, that they have breakfast and they're in school and then a late dinner, I haven't seen it be a problem. It's just more just tolerability.
But how many hours between one?
There's no right or wrong answer.
Okay.
Everyone's different.
Because, sorry for me, but it
Yeah.
happens sometimes that he doesn't want to eat, and I say, no, you should eat. It passed maybe 3 hours, no?
Right. Yeah, it's yeah, I mean, I have some families who the child has like breakfast snack, lunch snack, dinner, and then another snack. That is what works for that child. Makes them happy, makes them tolerable. You know, at Keto College in England, they were talking about doing that a lot. They were, teaching new dietitians, and they said how frequent meals are really good. For GLUT1, it probably makes sense a little bit. You know, sort of keep the fuel level pretty stable. But you know, on the other hand, if they're just refusing, just maybe wait, make them until they're hungry for the next meal. You don't want to. You want to kind of keep what they were probably doing before. Is what I try to. My dietitian tries to do. She looks at the food record, and I'll keep going. Just give me the time. Okay. Anyone have any questions for Dr. Cervenka? While she's about adult transition. Yes.
How do we encourage our current pediatric neurology places to cover adults or have an adult?
So I think the experience is that if the adult folks don't want to do it, even if there's a pediatric person trying to pressure them, it's not going to happen. So going more towards the adult side of things and talking to adult neurologists and reaching out to them, that I think is the most important thing. And that's why we're trying to improve education. So something that's exciting is that there are now keto questions on the neuro boards that the adult neurologists have to answer. I know that sounds very simple, but it's a first step, because now that's part of their curriculum that they have to learn about to take the national exam. So they shouldn't be able to say, oh, I've never heard of this, I don't know what it is anymore. That shouldn't be the case. But I think the training is variable. So starting when your child is 18, if I'm assuming you have a child with one, I'm not sure.
Yeah, he's only 6. So
But
it's a long way to go.
starting before he's 18 and reaching out and talking to adult neurologists and just letting them know. I mean, it's fine to tell a neurologist, hey, my son has this and I know a lot about it, but you know, I just need somebody to help kind of support me through this. Asking them if there is a dietitian that they work with or someone that they know, because it doesn't have to be one of those 11 centers that I showed on my slide. There can be adult neurologists that are comfortable taking a couple of patients that you already know what you're doing and you just need follow-up and monitoring, and they're okay to do that. And then the biggest thing also is how they're also helpful is that as your son starts to have adult medical problems, they know who to connect him with specialists in the adult field, because you don't want him seeing like a pediatric pulmonologist, for instance, when he's 35, because the issues become different in terms of general health. So having that person to also be a connecting point is really important.
So I talk about Daniela. She's a 17-year-old girl in Chile, and well, I told you that she has just went out of the ketogenic diet. She's in a transition. She's in a modified Atkins, and some days she feels like really tired. And her mother is very worried because she went down to 0.3, 0.6 ketone levels. Well, her mother is very, very worried because she's going to university and she's very worried about what could be the impact, cognitive impact in high college, you know?
Right, so and the thing with the modified Atkins diet, I said that it generally turns into a 1-to-1 to 2-to-1 ratio, but in adults, limiting to 20 grams of net carbs, you can add more fat to that. There isn't we don't prescribe the amount of fat on purpose, because it's going to be different for each individual, and I think that's even more so for GLUT1. So you can limit to 20 grams just so that it's easier to go to college and to go to a buffet and pick out the foods that you want to eat and to know the grams to limit your carbs. But then at the end of the buffet line, look at your plate and say, wait, I need to go back and get more dressing, I need to go back and add more oil, if it turns out that you've been feeling lethargic and doing what you're doing. So again, it's more of a reactive diet in a way that you're, especially if you're otherwise aware of your symptoms, you can just add more fat the next day and feel better. So it doesn't limit you to saying you must do a 1-to-1 or a 2-to-1 ratio. Does that make sense? And then you could add things like we talked about, like MCT, other things to help boost ketosis on top of the diet.
And she's having also Ritalin, and that's not, she just good about it. She asked what could, if there's another drug that is not Ritalin that you suggest.
So for like ADHD symptoms,
Yes.
is there, I generally will send patients to see a psychiatrist or behavioral specialist in the adult arena for that. I don't tend to manage that myself.
Okay. Thank you.
So I asked this question 2 years ago. I'm just curious whether there's more information, and maybe in the adult population you've experienced more of it. My daughter's on modified Atkins, and we do subtract fiber, but there are a lot of products out there now that are 25 grams of fiber and 1 gram of, other sugars, and she uses that, but I feel anecdotally that there is a tipping point. I'm not sure where it is, where the fiber actually does count. And I know in the past you've said you'll subtract all of the fiber and there's no limit. So I'm wondering, especially with the adult population, with all these products out there now where there are really high fiber breads. I mean, right outside we've got the pastas and all of that are
Right.
really high fiber.
Right.
I'm just curious if you have any experience with whether that affects ketosis or the diet.
When you say it does count, you think it counts in terms of the ketosis, what happens?
I think
Ketosis
so I'm one of those people that doesn't measure my daughter's ketones, but behaviorally. So
Okay.
I can see issues with her movement when she's had more carbs in the form of fiber.
Okay.
Because that's really the only thing we ever add is we've changed over as we've done modified. We've become less strict about the fiber piece, and we do have these other products that are out there, and I
Sure.
feel like it's not as well controlled.
So I've not heard that, at least in my adults, I haven't heard that particular complaint. I think they don't tend to use quite as much fiber. A lot of times they end up with more problems with constipation. My worry would be about hydration also, because with the fiber tends to pull more of the fluid out of your body also, and could make you more dehydrated. So, and if you're dehydrated, that could also exacerbate symptoms. So I'm not sure if it's actually the carb content of the fiber. You're right though, there's more and more literature coming out about fiber that's more than what we've done, which is just to not count it
Take
at
it
all.
all out.
So
So
I
you
think
don't
it could be a
limit-
combination, but do you do like 64 ounces of fluids a day generally?
She
or-
drinks all day
All the
long,
time?
and she
Okay.
almost exclusively drinks water, so that's,
probably okay
yeah,
from
so I
that
think she's
perspective.
okay with hydration, but would you see dehydration affecting the movement pieces?
I mean, I know, yeah, I mean, I don't.
Dehydration.
Yeah.
So, how old's your daughter?
13.
Okay, so the one and only time so far that we've come out of ketosis was because we gave her too much of the product, and she got too much fiber.
Right, and so I
And-
feel like it
And
does.
so we have to use the fiber very sparingly, and that's, observationally, that's the only thing we could point to that took her out. She ate too much of the the keto bread product.
Yeah.
Because her body hadn't ever had it, and we found it, and she loved it. And we're like, well, it's a ratio, you
Right,
know,
right.
look how happy she is.
But that's the thing, it makes it so much easier to comply with the
And
diet, but.
she crashed, man,
yeah.
just crashed. So we learned the hard way on how to balance that fiber. And again, this is just our kid, right?
Yeah.
But it's observational.
So that sounds like something we need to look at, obviously.
I would, I mean,
Yeah.
my child was 6, not 13, but still.
Yeah.
So the majority of our experience is with epilepsy patients, but it may be that group 1 patients handle the fiber differently and that we shouldn't
Yeah,
be
I would love to
surprised
hear
by
more
this.
about that, because there's so
Yeah.
many more products coming out that are low carb, but it's because they're so high in fiber.
Yeah, we're real
There's
careful
a,
with it.
there's a conference Dr. D'Agostino coordinates in Tampa every February, and what's it called?
Nutritional ketosis.
The annual conference on nutritional ketosis and therapeutics, and epilepsy is in the fine print. we were the only epilepsy lecturers there. They had an exhibit hall that makes this one look like like tiny little buffet. And they had all these products. They had low carb wines. They had all this amazing foods that looked almost too good to be true.
Right.
And you just don't know.
And that's what I'm worried about, is
Yeah.
we get these like
It's
too
becoming
good to
more
be
of an
true
issue.
things, and.
Dry farms wines.
Yeah, it was
They were very good.
pretty good. A lot of people were sipping it. I mean, at least, you know, what we had seen with those sugar alcohols were a common question we used to get before, is that they're probably okay.
Yeah.
But like, it's the same advice we gave people back then with the Atkins bars and the Atkins shakes, but that was the only thing out there was, you know, one change at a time. You know, maybe don't eat the whole bar, but eat only half, same thing maybe with the pasta.
Yeah.
And just test it out. That's what I tell most of my families. I usually actually the first month try to tell them to avoid this. First month of the diet, just to kind of,
Yeah.
I think we're getting.
We avoided it for years, but now it's harder, so. Thank you.
I'm glad to chat with you guys in the hallway.
Observation.
I'm
There's, yeah, there's nothing, and our doctor, was like, it's no big deal. We're like, shit, it's the first time we've not, there's something happened, and that's the only thing we did differently, therefore.
Fluid restriction, no, you should push through it.
Because she's like, and we're all Dale,
That might also be like, they might should.
Dale, tomas nota.
If kids have too much water, they can actually become, I forget what the word is, but it's like so depleted in sodium, like use too much water from the water poisoning, you can actually, yeah. So it could be because she's so little.
Mine's
So with other kids, they
diagnosed
push
when
it.
she was 3.8 years.
Even though surveys, the
8 years,
one said
my
he
husband
did
was diagnosed, her first
he
symptom at
wasn't
2 months old.
at least that he's seen
And I live 20 miles from Dr.
new trial that's looking at
where the practice is. So like, if I'm in the New York City area, I need to.
And so, you know, he thought that made sense because he's
Mine took two,
so it may be a matter of trying some other supplement.
You know, if you're looking at movements and other. Like what kinds of supplements would you consider looking at?
There's so many out there. They're all probably worth
You seem to be with whatever works for you.
Well, I wasn't sure if I'd be able to like get right in slides and pull up onto the PowerPoint or not, so I just pull it up before they plug it in.
That potty training question you asked, that was our biggest.
Yes.
My biggest worry. It's almost like he doesn't, I mean, he just doesn't get there. Yeah. It seems as though it takes a little bit more time. So, but that was what I asked him. You are not. And then after that, every single day.
Yeah, so this is why I get better. Yeah, we tried. Yeah, he's saying, he's just sitting there.
You want to start with
Just like
What is the afternoon study, Chris?